All right. Alright, so I know we've talked before about, Pawpaw's, athletic career and when y'all met and things like that. But I don't know a lot about whenever you guys first lived out here in Moorfield and like your childhoods and Petersburg growing up. So that's why I wanted to kind of talk about that today. So my first question is, who was the earliest or oldest member of your family that you knew personally and remember?
Of our family, that'd be Margaret,
And who was she?
our older sister.
Mm-hmm.
I think what she's asking is, when you were growing up, who's the oldest family member, like ancestor or...
Oh,
Like, if you knew your great-grandparents or great-aunt or uncle or...
my grandmother,
Mm-hmm.
we have a picture of her.
And which grandma was that?
Poland, over,
Over on your mother's side, wasn't it?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Your grandmother on
Never
your
knew
mother's
my grandparents on my father's side.
Mm-hmm.
They passed away early.
Mm-hmm.
But my grandmother on the mother's side, we go across there. Have you ever been through that?
Mm-hmm.
Seen her house?
Yeah.
She would been the oldest.
What happened to her husband?
Shoot.
Your grandmother's, your grandfather.
I really don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you ever knew him.
We didn't know him.
He must have already passed away.
Yeah.
But I should know what happened to him. But
Yeah.
I guess just old age, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
What was she like?
Your
She was a pretty strict grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
But she always had cookies, sugar cookies.
Mm-hmm.
We loved to go up there.
You used to go down and stay with her, some, didn't you?
Well, we'd stay overnight, maybe 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you slept in the feather bed?
Yeah. All our beds had feather ticks on them.
And you sank down in them?
You almost had to throw them things off.
Oh.
You'd smother.
Yeah, right.
Tack and I went hunting over, and he slept, I think, just about all night on the edge of the bed with you had to throw that feather tick off.
Mm.
Yeah, my great-grandmother had one too.
Mm-hmm.
She lived up,
Well, that's what they used in those days.
Yeah.
lived in the country
Mm-hmm.
by herself.
Yeah.
My great-grandmother was just a little old woman,
Mm-hmm.
really little, and she wore a bonnet all the time.
Mm-hmm.
She was,
They did your shopping out of a Siruba catalog.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
She had a room full of those catalogs.
yeah.
She never threw one away.
Just in case.
This
And
was
that,
your
that's
great.
how, when I played with paper dolls, was how to use people out of the catalog and cut out their dresses, and we'd sit up there in the room upstairs and play with those paper dolls that we made
Mhm.
and cut out.
So you knew your great-grandmother?
Yeah, my great grandmother.
Wow.
Yeah.
On which side? What was her name?
I didn't know my grandmother from my mother's side because she had already passed away
Mm-hmm.
before I was born. And my mother, that was my grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
My great grandmother kind of raised my mother's family because my grandmother passed away when she was pretty young.
Oh.
Although she had already had 7 children, but
Mm-hmm.
she didn't live very long, and most of them moved into my great grandmother, and that's why I knew her.
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't know my other grandmother.
What was her name? What was your great grandmother's name?
You know, I can't remember. Diedrich, she was great grandmother Diedrich, but I don't know what her first name was. I can't remember what I called her. I probably just called her grandmother, but
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Grandma.
Yeah.
Was her husband around, or was it just
No, she lived there by herself. Her husband he had died long before I guess I was born, because I never did see him. She lived on a farm, and she had chickens, and she had a barn and a cow, and I guess that's all. And we got water out of a well. She had a well there at the back of the house, and you let the bucket down in the well to get the water out, and then you went down the hill to the river. The river was right there. We used to get down there and play all the time. And they also had something that would take you across the river. I never did get in it, but it was there. It was a fixture of some kind, and it looked like a little boat up over the river there, and there were wires going over that you could go to the other side that way. But we always went over on the boat. But
Back then, life expectancy was about 60.
Yeah.
Pretty close. Give or take, yeah.
Now-
you used to go up Grandma's some, didn't
Yeah.
you?
Yeah. Good
And-
fishing up there.
And your dad probably, Sherry remembered, I think, going up there.
So she lived a pretty long time.
Yeah, but that great grandmother was going then. I think it was Myrtle.
Which is your grandmother's sister? I mean, it's your mother's sister. Your mother's sister, Myrtle.
Oh, my mother's sister. Yeah,
She lived up there at Royal Glen?
yeah.
Okay. So your great grandmother, that house at Royal Glen, that was the house that she lived in?
Yeah, that's where she always lived, was there in Royal Glen. In that house there by the river.
Mm.
That house is still there.
That'd be cool.
It is still
And
there.
she only had, well, I can't remember, she had great-grandmother Diedrich. I know she had the one son, but she'd had to have more than that. I don't know.
Yeah.
My mind's kind of confused at times. I can't remember.
Oh, it's far back too. No, you're good.
Betty, that house is still there?
Is the house? Yes, the house is.
Have you been back?
Yes, I've been in it. So yeah, they let me go through it.
They've remodeled it, Rod.
Yeah, it has changed.
Yeah.
But it's a nice house.
The house itself was like a lot of the houses back then. It was you went into a huge hallway that didn't have any heat in it, and then on the left side of the hallway was the kitchen, just one room, the kitchen, and then on the right side when you go in was their living room, and they had a fireplace in there, and then
Dining room and
the kitchen was the dining room.
Kitchen was-
Yeah, had a
Yeah.
big kitchen because that's all was on the other side. And then you went up a kind of a enclosed, windy stairway, and there was a bedroom up over that room. And then if you're in the hallway, now there was just a door to go into the living room there. But if you coming out of the kitchen or the living room into that wide hallway, there were wide steps going up, and there was a bedroom up there. So that's the only rooms that were in the house.
Yeah.
that's where my grandmother's house was.
Was
That
it?
hall was always cold.
Yeah.
Just, they never had any heat in there.
Yeah.
There was
And they had bedrooms with the stove down in the living room or kitchen.
Well, I don't
Just
know
let the
how,
heat go up
Yeah.
through the grates.
how they heated the rooms up there. I can't
That's
remember.
probably the only way to heat them.
Hmm?
That's probably the only way to heat them, but
The
heat
stove?
downstairs.
Or the-
Stove.
And what about the houses that y'all grew up in whenever you were little?
What was what?
The house that you grew up in, when you were little and you'd go up to visit your great grandmother, where were you living then?
Where was the living room?
Where did you
Where'd
live?
you live? You lived there in Petersburg,
Mm-hmm.
didn't you?
Your home.
I grew up in the same house. I always lived in the same house. That's where, here in Petersburg,
Mm-hmm.
where I grew up.
Yeah.
But I would go up when I was older. I would go up there sometimes, and the cousins would be there. Some of them lived there, and I would stay overnight. And I had to walk a good ways to get on the bus, but that's the only way the bus didn't come back down to the house.
Mm-hmm.
We had to walk out to the main highway. But I used to go and stay overnight with them some. And
What was your house in Petersburg like?
my house in Petersburg was
Nice
Yeah.
home.
a big house. Yeah, I don't know whether my father was married before, and I don't know whether he had it built or what. He and his first wife had a son,
Mm-hmm.
but his first wife died,
Mm-hmm.
and the son was already old enough to be out of the house when I was born.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know him real well, but he spent a lot of time there at the house.
Mm-hmm.
And when he got married, he had a couple children, and they would come and stay with us. And my grandmother and my grandfather would come from Baltimore
Mm-hmm.
and spend a lot of time with us. My dad had hunting dogs, and they would go out hunting, rabbit hunting.
Yeah.
And so my house, it had a big kitchen, a really big kitchen, and a living room, and a pantry, and a long back porch downstairs, and a long porch upstairs, and had 3 bedrooms, 3 big bedrooms upstairs, and a bathroom, and then it had an attic in it.
Mm-hmm.
I used to go up, and there was a chest up there, and I used to go up there and play and go through that chest. And there was a lot of Civil War, not a lot, but some stuff there in that chest.
Yeah.
But yeah, my house was pretty big, but your house was pretty big too in town, the one you had.
Oh, yeah.
So,
That little house we were born in over Baker,
Mm-hmm.
it's still there.
Mm-hmm.
It's
little house. It was a little house.
Mm-hmm.
very little. Us 3 boys slept in a room,
Mm-hmm.
and 3 girls
Mm-hmm.
slept in another room. And mother had a room downstairs for a bedroom,
Mm-hmm.
but it was very close.
Yeah.
4 bedrooms, and how many children then?
6,
Whew.
So,
and
and a little incident happened over there with Warden.
Dad kept his high-powered rifle down on the fountain.
Bottom of the
Where
steps.
the bottom of the steps where you go up. He kept his high-powered rifle there,
His dad.
Mm-hmm.
and somehow or another he forgot to take the shell out of it. And Warden got a
Hold of it.
He accidentally pressed on the trigger, and it shot a hole right up through went all
Yeah.
the way through. You could see that.
Oh my! Right through the ceiling, through the
Yeah,
roof.
right through the roof. Back then, you didn't have insulation in the
Yeah.
ceiling.
But
Yes.
look what Dick did then. Here,
Yeah.
there's a little hole up there in the ceiling. He shot up through there.
Here?
Yeah,
See a little hole right there?
The hole's right
I never knew that.
up there. Yeah, he was older.
We didn't have a bathroom in that little house.
Mm-hmm.
It was a two-holer outside.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have one up in the country either.
Yeah.
But we had cow, and pigs, chicken.
A horse, didn't you?
No, we didn't have more.
Didn't you? I thought you had a horse.
What was your dad doing then? What was his occupation then?
He was a lumberman. That whole field over there in front of that little house was covered with lumber.
Mm-hmm.
J.P. Knack owned this, used to own this
Lumberyard.
lumber yard up there.
He owned, your dad owned how many?
Dad had 3 sawmills. His son scattered here up in South Fork.
And did your mom work at all?
After he passed away, she became the recorder of town.
Mm-hmm.
That's about all she did.
Yeah. Now your dad was also sheriff, right?
Yeah,
For Hardy County, or
yeah,
Mhm.
Hardy County.
And then didn't he do something with the fire department too?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's what killed him. He went out on a fire and got wet.
Mm-hmm.
Then he come back and the shoemaker outfit from over where we have our camp,
Mm-hmm.
they were on the loose. They was gang.
Mm-hmm.
They'd break in these stores. And Dad went out on that after he got back from the fire,
Mm-hmm.
and he's still wet,
Yeah.
and caught double pneumonia
Ooh.
the next day. Back then, when you got pneumonia, that was a death warrant.
Yeah.
They couldn't cure it.
Hmm.
Do you remember that, Papa?
Yeah, I remember when.
Do you?
Yeah. The-
You were
he
back.
got pretty sick. They took Warden and I over to my uncle's over at Wardenville to stay. And he passed away while we were over there. He had a powerful funeral,
Oh my.
Really?
biggest one
It was a
that ever they ever knew.
motorcycle. Cops. I don't know what they're called, but there was a
All over.
bunch of them that
Mm-hmm.
followed the casket down
Kirby.
to Hott's Chapel.
Mm-hmm.
You've read his obituary, haven't you?
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful.
There was a big write-up about it.
Yeah, she's very.
What was he like, Papa?
Well, he was pretty strict, but he was a good father. He took us to Sunday school, church, well as I can remember. But he was just little. But, and he'd bring us home candy when he'd get around the store. I remember that.
So he must have been.
Jean and I with the coal shovel. One time we were up in their bedroom acting up for some reason or other. And he paddled us with the coal shovel. Remember that?
He must have been pretty successful in the lumber business to move
Oh, yeah,
to
he
move
was
from Baker
Very
to the.
successful. He had 3 sawmills. And he could look at a pile of lumber with this grade or thing that he stick down there and measure. And he could tell you the board feet in that whole lumber, pile of lumber.
Yeah.
Very.
I don't know what you call them, but we still have it. It's out in the other room there that he used.
Gauge.
Mm-hmm.
He measured the board, how thick they were, how wide they were on top,
Uh-huh.
and he could tell you about how many board feet was in that pile of lumber.
How did he learn that skill?
He probably taught himself, I figure.
Yeah, I'm sure he worked. That was his job all the way up through his life, I guess. And his brothers, they kind of associated with lumber, but not much.
Yeah.
They were more farmers. But that's where how he learned by doing it himself.
Where did your dad grow up?
Over in Kirby, mostly.
So he had moved you all to Moorfield before he passed away?
Yeah,
You bought a big
Yes.
house in Moorfield.
he bought this nice home up in Moorfield. We thought we was in heaven. Had running water,
Yeah.
commode, bathtub. We'd never taken a bath in the bathtub until we moved over here.
Mm-hmm.
How many years did he live there before he passed away?
Probably 4 or 5.
So you all moved into this big house. You had more bedrooms. You had
Oh,
running
my
water.
goodness. 2 of us boys had a bed. Girls had bedrooms. We thought we was living. Dad's going to heaven.
And what was your mom like?
She was a wonderful mother.
She was.
She after he passed away, a lot of times we didn't know whether we were going to have something to eat or not. You know,
Yeah.
she sold the sawmills. We lived on that a while. She run the sawmills for a while. They come in on Saturday and she'd pay them sawyers. But they got too much for her.
Yeah, and she did
And
what?
this was right at the end of the Depression.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't anything much around. Warden went to work at J.P. Nadby lumber yard, handled the lumber, stagnant.
And you went up and stayed with
Yeah, I went up and stayed with Martin Warren for 5 years
his sister,
Mm-hmm.
her
in the
husband.
store.
And you did that to pretty much relieve the financial burden?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. You only got paid what?
50 cents a week. But they give me a good life.
Yeah.
I got so I could run the store, want to go away or something. I could run it.
And which store was this?
Durgan store, remember that old store there at Durgan?
Mm-hmm.
They tore it down now.
Yeah.
One made a fortune there.
Mm-hmm.
How old were you then when you could run the store?
I was probably 12, 13.
Betty, what was your mom like when you were a little girl growing up?
Well, my mom was She was pretty strict too. She was more strict with me than she was my sister. My dad would always take up for me, but whenever she would get on me about something, but she was a good mom. She was a lot younger than my father, about 20 years younger than my father, and she had been working staying up at the Royal Glen. I think she came in town to do cleaning for people, and though after she married Dad, she never worked anymore. She didn't have to work then.
He was with the B&O Railroad.
Yeah, he worked on the B&O Railroad, and he would be out of town a lot because they would run from Petersburg to Cumberland, and sometimes they're further than Cumberland, but sometimes he would have to stay in Cumberland for a week.
At that time, they had cars for people to ride.
Yeah, passenger train at that time.
On that, he ran that train a good bit. He would always be there to win and wave at us. We was up to grade school there.
Didn't they call him Captain?
What?
What'd they call him?
Cap Carter.
Cap Carter.
Cap Carter, yeah.
Yeah.
He was conductor when it
He's
was.
a nice fellow.
Yeah, he was very sports minded.
Yeah.
He retired when he was, I think, around 60, 65. I'm not sure how old he was when he died. I can't remember that, but he hadn't I think maybe a year after he retired, or maybe 2, he died. He had cancer, and he died on the operating table. So,
How old were you, Mom, when he died?
how old was I when my dad died? I was married. And George and I got married in November the 6th.
She was probably 23.
23. And
I was overseas when he died.
yeah.
No one knew you were married yet.
And we were we
Didn't
were
know.
married.
A lot of people here knew, but I don't think he knew, did he?
No, he didn't. He would have been very happy about the marriage.
Because Papa's a good man and because he was a very good athlete.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I married her for money, and
Yeah,
didn't I get fooled?
right.
So, Dad, you knew Cap Carter pretty well too.
Yeah, we talked a good bit,
And he,
waiting on her. But yeah, I knew him. He'd always be at the tournaments.
yeah, he had something to do
Had
with it.
junior high tournaments up there in the old grade school.
He helped with them.
He helped with them. Good fellow.
Yeah, he was very sports minded.
Yeah.
Now, did your parents ever talk about where, like, your families were from, like when they first came to the U.S., or?
Ours came from Germany.
I don't know about ours.
Never really came up.
My grandfather was a very distinguished grandfather. He have a picture of him in there. He looks like somebody that's very distinguished. And but they lived in Baltimore.
Okay.
And Dad had a brother that lived in Baltimore too. And I was down there one time, and I can't remember just where I was, I remember that some of the times I was down there, but this time they had an upstairs, and went downstairs and went outside for some, I don't know what it was, and the door locked, and I couldn't get back in, and I really got scared because it was in a pretty big city there,
Yeah.
Baltimore. So. But finally, I got a hold of somebody. I don't know how. I just remember being outside and couldn't get back in.
Yeah.
And then I stayed with my uncle. He lived there, and I stayed down there with him 1 week. He had a daughter, and they lived in one of those houses, row houses that are all together. But I didn't get down there that often, but I did get down once in a while.
Did your dad grow up in Baltimore?
Yeah.
What was his mother like?
Now, his grandfather, I think, had married again. I think his mother had passed away. Now, they were both, my grandfather, they were both, you could tell they must have come from a pretty good family, but I don't know, even know anything about their family, but they were kind of.
They were probably came from Germany.
They may have. But they would come.
That's a German name.
What did he do in Baltimore, your grandfather? Did he have
He
a
was a
business?
conductor of the railroad in Baltimore. In the train down there. One time, the train got stuck in the snow. It couldn't go any further in the snow, and my grandfather got out and walked to get him some help, and the people on the train had a medal made about grandfather helping them in the snow when it was snowbound, and I have that medal that they gave him, but it has on there the date and where, and that the passengers gave him this medal for walking. I didn't say how many miles, but
Yeah.
it said for walking to get him help.
Wow, I never knew
That's
that.
cool.
But I do
What
have
brought
that.
your dad to Petersburg? Was it the railroad?
Yeah. He was always a railroad man.
Yeah.
Do you know how your parents met, Betty?
No, how my parents met?
Uh-huh.
No, like I said, I think my mother must have been cleaning houses to help my great grandmother, because I'm sure she was living with her then. I have her diary. Oh, I don't know how many pages, quite a few, on the computer about how she wrote every day. Mostly she would write about maybe she was going to do the washing today, or the sun was shining, or it was raining, or maybe I hear Mom's name mentioned sometime, and Jen, that's her sister, mentioned a good bit in the pages that she wrote. I do have a cousin of mine does that genealogy, and he fixed it so I could put it on the computer. So
That's cool.
Whose diary was this? Your grandmother's?
great grandmother.
Your great grandmother's
Wow.
diary.
Up at Royal Glen. Yeah.
Wow.
Papa, how did your parents meet?
I don't know. Probably down there at Kirby, they had about every Saturday night they had a barn dance. And I kind of think that's might have been because we go down there and stay. My grandmother's, they still had them down right there at Kirby.
Do you remember your
And
parents
people-
dancing?
No, I don't remember then. But I remember taking Borden and I to, my grandmother took us down there on a buggy. And they had, and then people come in there with some big old hob-nosed nailed boots, still in the head of them was outside the boot. And they danced and they drank
Probably met there.
moonshine. What?
They probably met there.
I assume but I don't know.
Because your mom grew up in that area too,
Yeah.
right, in Kirby? So
Yeah.
both your parents grew up pretty close to each other.
You know where her house was?
Mm-hmm.
She went to school down in Horncamp,
Mm-hmm.
that little school down there.
Mm-hmm.
And she had to either walk or ride the horse down there.
Yeah.
Most of the time she rode a horse. But that's where she grew up. And I assume that that's where she met my father, was probably at those barn dances or places like that. They had Modern Woodman Association there. Dad was a modern woodman. And they'd have picnics every summer, maybe 2 or 3. But they used to take us down there. Mother used to, when they'd have those picnics.
I can
And they were
remember.
big picnics.
I can remember up home when they used to come around in a pickup truck. I think maybe it was covered. I can't quite remember,
Yeah.
but it had big blocks of ice. They had an ice house there in Petersburg that they would chip up these big blocks of ice and go around to the houses and chip off a chunk of it.
That was refrigerators then.
Yeah.
Put them 25 or 35 or 40
Pounds.
pound block. I
And-
used to help with that too.
Mm-hmm.
And then they delivered milk in glass
Bottles.
bottles, and they would come in the middle of the night, I guess, because they'd leave it out there at the doorway, and when we would go out to get it, it would be out of the bottle, frozen out of the bottle about that far,
Mm-hmm.
and but that we drank it
Yeah.
when it thawed enough.
Now, what kind of chores did y'all have as kids?
What was what?
What kind of chores did you have to do around the house?
Chores. What kind of chores did you?
Oh, what work?
Mine was getting the wood in, working in the garden. We always had to do that before we went to play. Of course, we lived there close to the baseball field. There. We had to do our chore before we went. But it might have been pretty close dark before we come back.
Mm-hmm.
But we always had chores.
Well, I had to work in the garden too. We had a big garden.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we
And
did too.
we had a smokehouse. And then we lived right in town.
Mm-hmm.
We had a smokehouse and a chicken house, a big chicken house.
Mhm.
And at the other end of the chicken house, we had a place for a cow.
Mhm.
And then on this other side of the chicken house, they had their hunting dogs, a pen for their hunting dogs.
Mm-hmm.
We had a garage for a car, and and another wood house that we called a wood house. I don't know, but anyway, and we had a grape arbor. Is that what it's called?
Arbor, yeah.
And all from the house all the way to the chicken house, we had that fenced around, and they had grapes, and I used to have to go and pick the grapes, and also I had to carry some wood too. We had a cold furnace in our basement, and truck would come and bring the coal and shoot it down into the basement.
We had a grape arbor too. They canned grape juice every summer. A lot of people raise them for wine. Most of them were grape juice.
I remember one time, I don't know who was there and why I had this gun, but we had a doorway that went out of the kitchen. We had two doorways that went out. One doorway went out to the side porch there, and the other one went out to a little porch, and it had railings all around and down steps, quite a few steps. And I was standing there at that doorway, and I had this shotgun or something. I don't know what kind of gun it was, but I know I shot it, and it kicked me back into the house there, and I never did do that again. So that was enough.
That house still stands up there that you grew up in.
Oh yeah, it's a nice home.
I think they're doing some work on it right now, but it's a nice home. It was a nice home.
Have you been back in it since you're?
And I have been back in it. Yes, she let us go back in, and somehow or another, she had this coach inside her house. It was like almost like a covered wagon, I guess is what it was, really. And she said that sometimes when they had kids company that had needed a bedroom or something, they would sleep in that coach. And I guess she had it taken apart and then put back
They
together.
had to take it apart.
Yeah.
Put it in there.
But she had made a good many changes in the house. But yeah, she let us go in that house, and she also let us go in another house there that they owned, and it was in a triangle. And I used to go over to that house a lot. There was a lady by the name of Alt. I can't remember. There was a Sadie Alt, and there was a Geneva Alt. But anyhow, it's a big house, and it's still standing. And he let us go through that house. Of course, I'd been through it when I was a kid. And then he I got to go up to Royal Glen and go through that house. They let us go through there. So, yeah. And it had been motorized so that you could go from the one bedroom to the other upstairs. There was a big hallway upstairs, and they cut a door from the hallway. Did you go in that one with me? No. Guess it was Hun. I don't know who else.
The old one, but I went.
So.
Now I know that we have some Civil War stuff. Whose stuff is that though?
Who did it belong to?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know who it belonged to.
Yeah.
Well, your uncle, or my uncle, was in the Civil War. And that's probably where that came from.
It probably did.
He left Kirby and went to Texas.
There is a
They
good.
came around looking for him,
Mhm.
but he had gone to Texas and got in a Civil War some way or another.
Mhm.
We never heard of him. He never come back to this area.
Mhm.
What was his name? Do you remember?
Who was the one? We have a story about something that happened during the Civil War down at your grandmother's.
Mm-hmm.
They,
Well, that's where this,
this fella
but I can't remember.
had
his
come
name.
back. There was somebody who was in the house that had been in the Civil War, and this colonel or whoever it was
Yeah.
came back there, and they were shooting into the house,
Mhm.
and they shot somebody there, maybe one of your uncles or something, got shot in the hand, his hand, and it said you sent it to me, maybe, Polly.
Mhm. Yeah, I recognize the story. I forget all the details. I had to have it on my computer. But they said, I think it was a Confederate soldier.
He shot him in the hand, and he
Yeah.
died
Yeah.
from the shot or something. Yeah,
And they said you have.
I put that in the book
Mhm.
that I made a copy of it and put
Yeah.
it in the book. So
Dad, your uncle who was in the Civil War, was he on the Union or the Confederate side?
I really don't know.
the book will tell you in that story.
I used to know. Mother used to talk about it, but he went to Texas and they never heard of him after that.
But
He left the farm down
but one of them was there in the house.
there.
Mhm.
Your uncle's
Yeah.
that had been in the war.
Yeah, I think he was the one in that story was on the Confederate side.
Yeah, I can't
Most
remember.
likely it was.
Mhm. And the Union soldiers came looking for him.
Yeah,
And I think they burned that house down. The one in this
they may
story.
have. I don't
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah, they were looking for him. And they said you have 2 hours to get all your stuff out. And instead, they only gave him about 30 minutes and then set the house on fire.
This must have been your great uncle, not your uncle.
Yeah, it must have been.
Your uncle wouldn't have been in the Civil War, would he?
No.
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 Had to be your great uncle.
Now, whenever y'all were kids, who did you play with the most often? Your siblings or friends from school or?
Well, we had there in Moorefield, of course we were young then too, but we had the Cat Alley gang. There were boys back that alley where the chicken plant is now.
Mm-hmm.
That was all field,
Mm-hmm.
but there's row houses back that way from the tannery.
Yeah.
And there were kids our age. We played ball. Just anything at all. We fish.
Where'd that name come from?
Well, there was an awful lot of cats around. Everybody back that alley had cats. A number of them. It got the name Cat Alley.
How many people were in the Cat Alley gang, roughly?
Oh, it must have been 10, 15.
So you guys would just hang out together, get into
Yeah.
mischiefs, play ball, fish,
Yeah,
swim.
we'd play ball wherever we were at mealtime. We'd just go in and eat with them, or they'd come in and eat with us. But none of them had any money much at all. We just lived off of what they raised.
And I would.
Everybody had pigs, chicken. We had a cow, 2 pigs, and chicken house.
In Moorfield you did?
Yeah,
We had pigs too, hogs,
everybody did. That was their.
in town.
Yeah.
We used to go back, keep our cow back where the chicken plant is now. We'd go back there and bring it over for morning milking and then take it back. And after evening, we'd have to go back and get it, bring it over to. We had a little barn behind our house. Mother would milk it, we'd take it back. Jersey cow.
That's
Tame
what
little
we-
old cow, you could ride it.
Yeah. I used to ride it back and forth to the field too.
Really?
Yeah. There was a field there in town. I used to.
That was mostly the kind of cow, jerseys.
Yeah.
Very tame.
Yeah.
So, Mom, you're talking about the cow you had in Petersburg?
Yeah, we had a cow up Petersburg right there in town. And there was a field on down, I'd say, I don't know how far. I had to ride it down to the field. But we had a cow and we had hogs, 2 hogs. That's why we had the smokehouse. We would,
Everybody had a smokehouse.
yeah. And then what we did to play, I'd go back one street. There was an alley at the back of our house. It was back where the hog pen was, and the cows in the garden. All past that, there was an alley, and there were houses on the other street there. And we would go over there and play with the Diedrichs. They were cousins, and there'd be a whole gang of us, and we would play. Red Rover. We want somebody over or something like
There's
that.
somebody over.
And then we'd play knock the wicket. You put something on a tin can on a barrel or something and knock it the wicket and then run. I guess I can't remember, but we stayed outside and played all the time.
Way up until dark.
Yeah, and we over there where I told you that house was, it was in a triangle. Well, there was a main highway out there, went past it that way, and then another the road went that way, and that was out past our house there on the main highway. There was a bank where that house was in the triangle, and I would go out there on the main highway and get clay, mud along the wall, along the highway there, take it home, and whoever was there playing with me, we would make little beds and little chairs and little people, and that's what we would play with a lot. And then I had a cat I used to play with a lot too. I had a rocking chair outside. I'd take my rocking chair outside and I'd dress up that cat and rock it. I probably didn't want to be rocked, but I rocked it anyway. But that's what I spent. And paper dolls, like I said, we played with paper dolls out of a catalog. We'd sit and get the people out there in their clothes and dress them up. So, and we had other dolls too that we played with.
What was it like growing up in Petersburg and Moorfield back then? I mean, in terms of the community and things you would do and.
Well, there wasn't much. I worked at the 10-cent store when I was still in high school, and I also worked at the theater, sold tickets. In fact, that's where I saw George the first time, I guess. I probably saw him before then, but he came up to the movie with Marguerite sometimes, and I would be working, and I met him there, but And when I was teenagers, I mean, there was a place that we called Hilltop. It was not too awful far from our house.
Up there on where the gas stations are.
Yeah.
Sheets.
Mm-hmm.
There was
Right
a
across the street from Sheets.
dance hall, and the man that ran it, he was very strict. But there were some older men that I remember used to come up there and dance with us young girls. But I mean, they just liked to dance, I guess. They, as far as I know, that's all it was. But another thing that we used to do was to go swimming, and we didn't have swimming pools. And I had to walk. Well, us girls walked. Probably how far? A mile and a half or a mile?
Probably that far, yeah.
In the hot sun to get up to the hilltop and back down on that hill. And then you had to walk through the field to get to the swimming place where we were going to swim. We used to swim in the river some too, but that was a creek. And there was a creek behind the schoolhouse. We used to go swimming there, and I had a couple ducks there in town, and I had a tub I used to put out in the backyard, and a board going up to the tub, and the ducks would walk up and jump in the big tub there. Then I used to carry them some way back to that creek. I'd take them with me swimming sometimes, and let them swim in the creek. But that's what I mostly did.
Who taught you to swim, Betty?
I can't remember who taught me to swim. I don't remember that.
Probably taught yourself.
I may have.
But you're a beautiful swimmer.
Yeah, I'd like to swim. Yeah.
How about Moorfield, Dad? What was it like growing up in Moorfield as a kid and then as a teenager?
Well, to begin with, we, of course, played with the guys in Cat Alley. But they had matinees at that time up at the old firehouse. And we wanted to go to the movie. We'd go up to the mill, get ends and pieces off of flooring, and put it in a burlap bag, and get 2 or 3 bags of that, and go through town there and sell them. We get enough to go to the movie. And then the river was much deeper up there at the bridge. And we used to go up there, that was our swimming hole. The mill race and the river. Because you could jump off of the top of that bridge and down into the water. We taught ourselves to swim. We fished it. You could go up there anytime and catch a mess of fish, sunfish. Mother used to help us dig worms out in the chicken yard to tell us to go up and get a mess of sunfish. She loved them sunfish. And we'd do that. We fished.
Well, in the movies they had back then, they had what was it always before the movie started? Oh, they'd have Batman or something, a series of them.
Yeah.
They'd play it one week and you had to go the next week to find out what happened next, and it went on and on.
That was a way of filling up the theater.
They called them something. I forget what they called them.
Yeah.
Series or something. But
How much did it cost to go to a movie back when you were young?
15 cents. Mostly.
Yeah.
And Mom, you worked at
It
the
takes
theater?
all morning to sell
Mhm.
enough ends and pieces to get 15 cents.
People would buy it for firewood?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
start to. Then we get corn cobs from the mill right across the street from us, Teach's mill. Bag them up and sell them. After they peel the corn off the cob, and they'd be a pile there. And you bag them up and sell them for 2 or 3 or 4 cents bag.
Did they know you were taking the corn cobs?
Oh yeah,
No.
they would give them to us.
Mm-hmm.
It was open there where they threw the corn cobs, and you could just walk by, and if there's any there, they'd let us take them. We kept them away from the mill, helped them. But
Was your mom a good cook?
oh, she was a wonderful cook. She cooked. I don't know where she get her food, but she kept us going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she was a wonderful cook. Baked bread, my goodness.
Ate a lot of buckwheat cakes.
Mm-hmm.
Buckwheat cakes, bread. A lot of people come there and get loaf of bread, homemade bread
Mm-hmm.
from her.
They'd come and buy bread from
Yeah,
her? Hmm.
We were pretty well off. We didn't have to, never had to worry about anything that I can remember
Yeah.
growing up.
well, it was times we wasn't sure whether we had anything
Yeah.
or not, but
Well, you all
she'd
had,
always fix something.
Mm-hmm.
That
had a
was-
harder time, yeah.
We called it grease gravy.
Mm-hmm.
It was white gravy, put on bread, eggs. We ate an awful lot of liver down to market down below us there. It was very cheap. You buy liver. They butchered their own hogs and
We did. Yeah.
calves, beef. And
What was your favorite thing that she cooked?
her favorite,
Your favorite thing that she cooked?
are buckwheat cakes.
Mm-hmm.
We'd eat them all winter long. Oh man.
I can't remember any favorites.
Mm-hmm.
Your mom was a good cook, though, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah, she was a good cook. She could fix rabbit and squirrel. That's where I learned to fry squirrel and make gravy out.
From Betty's mom?
Mhm.
Yeah, she lived with us
Oh, yes, she did.
about 20 years.
And
She
she fell
Did a
here,
lot of cooking.
and broke her hip. Laid there until we got home. Then she had to go to the nursing home.
She didn't last very long.
No. She was, I think my sister was kind of her favorites when we were growing
Oh,
up.
yeah.
And
She couldn't do anything wrong.
no. And my dad, he always took up for me. But Mom, she got so she couldn't do anything, and when she got that way, she kind of took it out on me a little bit. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
so
But she helped us a lot
yeah.
with the kid.
Well, after Dad died, and I guess after I got married, then she lived up there by herself, not a big old house, and she said she just couldn't live there anymore by herself. And so we told her she could come and live with us. So she did.
Did she live in Baltimore for a little while?
She lived.
She went to Baltimore to babysit for a good bit.
Is that what it was?
And she did go down to Huns one time. Some reason or another, we couldn't take her. She went down there and stayed for a little bit, but
She didn't like it.
she wouldn't go down there and stay. So she stayed with us until she would go and stay with up Petersburg with her sister once in a while.
And when I was at Shepherd, she came there. And she lived with us there. She had a little place there.
The room,
Room hooked onto our
house.
house. She slept out there.
So the reason she came initially was not financial as much as she just
No.
wanted to
No.
be.
No.
She didn't want to be by herself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And George was going to school, and we had 2 children, I guess.
Yeah.
She came down, Shepherdstown, and stayed in that room. I don't remember, she left, she wasn't there all the time we were down there.
She babysitted someplace there,
Down
close
in-
to Baltimore or
Yeah.
Washington.
for someone, a relative.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't her sister, but it was her niece, I guess. She went down there. When my grandmother died, my grandfather married again. And she was young, really young, and had 7 more children. So my grandfather, fathered 14 children.
Did you have a relationship with any of those kids?
Oh yeah,
Did
I
you?
did. Those were the ones. My great grandmother. No, they didn't stay with her, but I did know those some of them. A lot of several of them I didn't know, but I did know a couple of them. Rosalie was one, and I think that's who she went down to Baltimore and maybe stayed with. I can't remember them too well. I know where the house where he lived in, it wasn't a very big house. The house that he and my grandmother lived in was right there close to great grandmother's house. It was further down the road, and it was up on a bank. I never did see that house, but that's where they lived. My grandmother and my mother lived in that house, and I don't know what happened to it. But after, I guess, something happened to the house, and then the rest of those that were living up there moved down to the great grandmother's house. So I had a couple uncles that Mom's brothers, and in fact one of them stayed with us for a while. So and my grandfather stayed with us for a while when he wasn't in very good health, and he stayed there after my father died. He stayed there for a while.
Your father's father?
No, my mother's.
Your mother's father.
No, my grandfather, he stayed there in Baltimore. He didn't.
Papa, didn't you say that you guys used to go down on Sundays to your grandma's house for buckwheat cakes too?
Yeah, we're, I don't think we went to eat buckwheat cakes.
Mm-hmm.
Mother and grandma would fix
Mm-hmm.
some kind of meal about it.
Yeah.
We go quite often, every other Sundays, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and your
We
mother,
had an old 36 Chevrolet car.
Mm-hmm.
Mother used to drive. She drove like she was driving a tank. I mean, she would get in that thing. Of course, the roads over in there down to Kirby wasn't paved.
Mm-hmm.
Just a cloud of dust. Mother.
Was she a good driver?
Yeah, she's a pretty good driver. Never did have a wreck, but boy, she had a lead foot.
She must have been pretty remarkable, you know,
She was,
to
I
have
think.
7 children, and then
Yeah.
and really there was probably no life insurance. You know, your dad probably didn't have life insurance. And
No.
Not that I know of.
I mean, for her just to make that all work and keep the house going is pretty remarkable.
Yeah. We all did work, help, but Nolan and Margaret did an awful lot.
yeah, they were
And
older.
Warden, he worked up there at the flooring mill an awful lot. That's why I think he was pretty close with his money. I mean, he used his money from up there to give a lot of it to Mother to raise us.
And then I gave her the money that I got from the Army. You were in the Army.
So when Dad was in the service and money came back, you would give some of that money to Dad's mom.
Yeah. Well, I didn't need it. And she did. So she didn't want to take it, but I gave it to her.
And she did the same thing with Warden. He'd send the
Money back to
to her.
when he was in the service. You and Warden did, yeah. Well,
Now, what did Aunt Nola and Aunt Mart? What were they? How did they contribute?
Well, Mark would always, they'd have me or Wendell up there
To
school.
stay.
And
staying, yeah.
Noel would, I don't know if she always helped Mother
got
all
married.
the time.
She was married to Uncle Tack
Yeah.
at that point.
When she was in high school.
They helped her Mother a lot. They'd take her out. When I was playing ball, they'd take her to where we were playing ball.
Mm.
Things like that. Nola helped raise us. Mark. Everybody had a job.
Did the community come together and help you all as a family once your dad passed away?
I can remember bringing in a lot of stuff at the time. I don't know how long that lasted, but
Food.
back then, you're gonna make apple butter, 5 or 6 families get together and peel the apples and make the apple butter for us. And then they move to another family. And everybody helped on each other. And that's the same way with butchering. When we butcher, it'd be 3 or 4 people, families come in, work up the meat and cure it. Then your mother would go help them wherever. They help one another an awful lot. And mother canned everything.
Yeah.
Everything out of the garden.
How old do you think your mother was when your dad passed away? Roughly.
Probably about the same ages. He was 44, wasn't he?
Yeah.
That's probably about what your mother was.
Roughly same age.
Yeah, probably about that.
Yeah, I can't remember in that book. And that book really belongs to you.
Mm-hmm.
But then I can't find on the passengers on the Charming Nancy, whatever it was, I can't even remember that. But I have the passenger list, and I can't find any Hott listed on that passenger list on that. So I don't know whether the whole thing is wrong or what. There's somebody in Hampshire County, Lori Hott, I think it is, that says that he wasn't on that ship. So I don't know.
The George Hott from Germany?
Was what?
The George Hott from Germany back then, or is that the one you're talking about?
The George Hott coming over on the Charming Nancy or whatever it was? Yeah. I couldn't find his name on there.
Yeah.
Passenger list. I got the passenger list somewhere or another. And I couldn't find his name on there.
Yeah.
So if his name isn't on there, I don't know where our line of Hott start then.
When I think, Pawpaw, on the Poland side, I read somewhere that the Polans were Irish.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Could be.
Did you ever hear anything about that, or?
On the polling side, you mean?
I don't remember hearing that. It could be.
Yeah, it was in I forget now what book I was reading, but it was about like Hardy County, and it was talking about the Polans, and it said how they were Irish.
I don't know then. That if that's right, that book, this whole book is wrong.
Well, that would have been the Polans were Irish, but the Hotts could have been on German still.
I'm pretty sure the Hott was German.
Yeah.
So, Dad, when we were young and your mom was living by herself up there, how was she supporting herself then? You know, when you guys were older and married, did she have like a pension or something?
Yeah, she worked for a town recorder for a number of years, and she got Social Security from that.
So she could support herself basically
Yeah,
on the
pretty much
pension and
so.
Social
We
Security.
used to try to help her.
Yeah, we'd help her.
Hmm.
I'm sure Warden helped her an awful lot.
So there probably was some income coming in from the siblings
Yeah.
to help her out.
Yeah,
Because that was a beautiful house she lived in. And, you know,
yeah.
I don't know whether you have any pictures of it or not.
I don't remember seeing any.
yeah, I was wondering if we had any pictures of that house myself. It'd be nice to have those.
Which house?
Somebody should
The
have
house in
a
Moorfield.
picture of it.
Yeah, I'd like to have had a picture of that. Because we thought we was dead and buried and going to heaven when we got that house. Running water,
Yeah.
bathtub.
Well, that
And
house.
we was up in high cotton.
That house was a great place for the family to get together. I remember
Oh my.
we'd go up there and watch the poultry parade and the whole family. I mean, there'd be all the cousins and
Yeah.
aunts and uncles and everybody would come together.
We'd play football out there in the yard. Basketball there. We had a 2-car garage. And we had a basket over the door. We learned to play basketball. Man, you drive in there for a layup, they bang you against them doors.
So when you were in high school, you played basketball there in the driveway?
Yeah, a lot. We played till dark.
Hmm.
Somebody would be there, wanting to shoot, wanting to play. And
I played-
most of the kids that played on the Cat Alley group were fine athletes. I mean,
Yeah.
when they went through high school, Coach Paul had some good athletes out of them.
Well, just you four brothers, you know, I mean, that's a pretty good foundation right there for a
Yeah.
team.
And there were 8 or 10 others around. Yeah, Wood Williams was tail end of the Cat Alley gang. He always talks about him. They picked on him a lot because he was just young,
Mm-hmm.
and he had a pretty sheltered life back there. He lived right at the end of the alley there.
I played basketball when I was in high school for a year or so. I think that we only had it for however long I played. I don't know, but it was half court,
Oh my
so
goodness.
you couldn't. Back then, you couldn't roam to.
I used to referee them games. That was punishment.
Yeah. Oh, it was. You not
Or they grab
have
a
any
ball
running
and
much.
slam each other
two
around.
dribbles, two dribbles, and that's all you could take.
Yeah, it was totally different rules, wasn't it?
Oh my goodness.
And we played other schools.
They grab the ball and fight over it.
Yeah.
You'd have to separate them.
Mom, you were a good athlete. I remember you playing softball.
Yeah,
Yeah, I played softball when I was 60-some years old.
yeah.
You played when you were younger, too. You
Yeah.
played all the way up through, right?
Yeah. Nina Sherman and I, we were both pretty old women playing softball on a softball team.
Did your dad teach you how to play softball?
What was that?
Did your dad teach you how to play softball?
No, we didn't even have softball.
Probably taught herself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Most people did.
We used to have field day. One day a year in high school, and we had played we'd have a softball team then, and we'd play. I guess that's where I learned to play. Then was
Papa, what church did you go to growing up?
Methodist.
Duffy?
Mm-hmm.
Now, did your dad help somehow with that church getting started?
Not started. It was already going.
Mm-hmm.
But he was a big membership to it.
Yeah.
He contributed a lot to it. And he helped build the basement, dug out a basement.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I helped with that a little after they passed away. But in his Sunday school class, they had 40-some members.
Wow.
He taught the Sunday school class? Did he teach the Sunday school class?
Probably some, yeah. I think he did, but I can't remember whether he taught or not. But I feel pretty sure he did. He was, and he and Mother both were very active in the church. And even after he passed away, we kind of reneged about going to church. But Mother would always make us, or insist on us getting up and going to Sunday school and church. She when we played ball, she still made or insisted on us going to church. The team would be playing in Cumberland or Kaiser, Romney. They would leave early, and we'd have to get a ride after church. I mean, she insisted on us going to church. And they would keep a car back for us.
So, Dad, how long did she keep going to church? I don't remember her going when I was little. I remember we'd go to her house after church.
She went for a good while, but I don't know when she stopped. I guess it got too much for her. But she always insisted on us going. And she'd say, if you're going out and getting around at night, Saturday night, you can get up and go to church on Sunday. And she always say something like that. Give us very religiously going to church.
Did we go over to her house every Sunday after church? That's kind of the way I remember it.
Yeah.
probably, yeah.
Yeah, I'd go over there. Or, we'd go over.
And it wasn't just us, it was Uncle Warden and Wendell and...
Yeah. Everybody meet there. She'd have something baked, usually.
Grandma,
Yeah.
what church did you go to?
What did you go to church growing up?
Who, me?
You.
Yeah.
Where did you go?
I went to Methodist church right down from us on the corner. And our school used to be down behind the Methodist church,
Mm-hmm.
grade school.
Yeah.
And Mom would make us wear these long stockings, old heavy stockings rolled all up to your rear end almost. And
I remember them.
as soon as we got out of school, we'd roll them down to our knees
Mm-hmm.
and go to school with them rolled down. We didn't like them rolled way up there. So, but we walked to school. It was not down very far from us. The grade school was down close, not too far from us.
And which school did you go to?
Which school?
Uh-huh.
The grade school.
Yeah, or high school, or all of them.
Well, I went to the grade school there in Petersburg,
Mm-hmm.
there in downtown, and then the high school was up on the hill, kind of like.
Where it is now. Almost.
Is the old building still there?
Old St. John's.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still there.
Well, it was. That's where I went to school.
Mhm.
There, it wasn't very far from us. Well, the grade school was down here, and the high school was on up past
Yeah.
them, and we walked to school all the time.
Mm-hmm. And Paul, what school did you go to?
The grade school up there where Brethren Church is.
Mm-hmm.
The old grade school. We
Not too awful far from your house.
went there to the seventh grade, and then we moved down where the high school is
Mm-hmm.
now.
And did you walk, or did you take a bus,
yeah.
or? Mm-hmm.
We walked.
Yeah.
No, they didn't. Buses didn't pick you up in town back then, did they?
No, people in town
Walked.
walked.
Mm-hmm.
That was a pretty good walk from our house up to the Brethren Church.
Well, it was further to the high school, wasn't it?
Well, it was pretty much
Probably about the same.
about the same.
No.